digital transformation in a way that the companies are looking forward to. So let me share my screen. Okay. So today's agenda is what is digital transformation, why digital transformation is necessary. Then we will look at how to implement and how to go about digital transformation. There are some reference architectures, there are some best practices, there are some guidelines how to go about it. We will look at a few case studies, and I would also like to show you a couple of really cool demos that I have worked on in Persistent. And those demos would give you good insights what really a digital transformation is. So have you heard this term, digital transformation? I'm sure many of you have already heard about this because it's a very catchy term, and it really explains the meat of how you transform something using digital technologies. So have you heard this term, or this is something you are hearing for the first time? All right, so I think let's make it interactive. Please stop me if you have any questions. Please stop me if you want to share something. But if you have this more interactive, I think it will be very interesting and delightful. So, okay, I think let's go with the fact that some people have heard about this, others may not have heard about this. So, whoever who have heard about this, do you know any well-known examples? Right, there are many examples that shows digital transformation power. So Airbnb, this is a portal, this is an application, mobile app that lets you browse the various properties when you are planning your travel, right? Ola, so this is a taxi service. Similarly, Uber, this is also a cab hailing service. Swiggy, Zomato, these are food delivery service. Now all these examples, they have done digital transformation. They have fundamentally changed how the services work using digital technologies. Now, when I say these companies are very good examples of digital transformation, how they have really used digital technologies to transform the business, I think let's look at that. That's a very interesting concept. Okay, so let's first look at what is meant by digital transformation, right? So it's basically integration of digital technology into all areas of business. So this is irrespective of what kind of business you are running. If you are running a hospitality business where you have a chain of hotels, if you are running a courier service, if you are running a hospital, you know, integration of digital technology into areas of business, that is one important aim of digital transformation. And the way you do it is fundamentally change how you operate and deliver value to the customers, right? So it's a fundamental change in the way you do your business. So in traditionally, you may be doing business in one particular way. Now, if you want to fundamentally change it using digital technologies, you have to think about how you would transform your business and deliver better value to your customers. Uh, in this world, customer experience, customer delight, these are very key terms. And any business, they would definitely want to make their customers happy. They would want to, give best of the services to customers, right? And if you fundamentally change your business to give more value to your customers, either existing customers or new customers, the customers will be delighted. So that would be another aim of digital transformation. So, transforming service into something significantly better, right? That's what I said, right? So currently, if you are giving some value to the customers, if you make it significantly better, your customers will be more happier. They will be loyal customers. They will recommend your service to, other customers, and that will help you grow your business, right? So this is all part of the digital transformation. Now let's come back to the examples that we have seen on the first slide. Let's apply this definition. So if you talk about Ola, how Ola changed the cab hiring experience. Now this is a very interesting thing, because if you know 10 years back, the mode of transportation were auto rickshaws and cabs. But to if you really want to have a cab, you would actually call up a cab service, something like radio cabs, that were prevalent in many cities. So you would call that service and you tell them that, okay, I need a cab 2 days later, and this is the time I would need a cab, and I want to go from point A to point B, right? So it's up to you to find out the various service providers, to book a cab, and then you would go on and call each one of them, and see who offers you the best deal, and then you would book a cab, right? So basically, it's the onus is on you. You have to do a lot of stuff. But how Ola changed it, how Uber changed it, is basically, they give you a platform where you are not waiting for the cab. Instead, the cab is waiting for you. So what you do is you just go to your mobile app, you open the application and you say, I want a cab. And whoever is near to you, that cab will basically get to you. So this is all convenience to you, right? You don't really have to book a cab in advance. You don't really have to provide any information. You don't have to, negotiate. You don't have to find out who offers the best rates, right? Instead of that, you just, you have a super convenience that you just, book a cab on the fly, and it's there for you. So rather than you waiting for the cab, here the cab is waiting for you, right? So isn't that something transformational? Your experience of booking a cab is completely transformed, right? And that's the value that Ola gives you. Similarly, Swiggy, right? So remember the earlier days where you want to order food from a restaurant. So you would call up that restaurant and tell them that, okay, I want to order some food, and then it's up to that restaurant to see if delivery person is available and they can deliver food to you. You know, many times you would call up different restaurants and order food. Now that's a nightmare for you, right? Even I remember that sometimes people used to call the restaurants and order food, and they have to go there and pick it up after some time, right? That's not a good user experience. So the way Swiggy has changed it, it's again, it's a complete transformation. So you don't have to you don't have to find information about restaurants. You just go to the app, look at the best offers, look at the restaurants that are in your area, and just place your order, and it gets delivered to you, right? So Swiggy has completely transformed how the food is delivered to you. It's completely transformed your dining experience, right? So one thing that is fundamentally changed is the delivery of the food, right? So if I am owning a restaurant and I am taking orders to deliver the food, previously I had to manage the delivery aspect of it, right? I need to have a few delivery guys who would deliver the food at customer residence, right? So I have to manage all that stuff. But that's not my core business. My core business is basically is food. So I prepare food. I give a experience to customers, right? My core business is not delivering the food. So that's what Swiggy has done. So its core business is a food delivery, right? But it has changed the entire experience of customers, how they order the food and how they get the food. So that's a complete transformation, right? Similarly, Airbnb. Now, in past, when you want to go on a vacation, you would contact a travel agent, right? And that travel agent would tell you, which are the best hotels in that area, what places to go and see, right? So you are really dependent on the travel agent. You could, of course, go to Google, do a lot of search, find out places to stay and all that stuff, but it takes time, right? And many people don't have that much of time to do all that of exploration. So what Airbnb has done is, you just go to Airbnb and you look out for properties that you want to stay, right? And you get pretty decent and pretty good properties to stay at very convenient rates, at very reasonable rates, right? So the way you used to, book your travel and plan your travel, that has completely changed. You know, you simply look for places that you want to go, and you don't have to worry about where do I stay, where do I go there, what should I see. It's completely, given to you by Airbnb. So again, the experience has completely transformed, right? So this is the power of transformation. So all these companies, what they have done is they have fundamentally changed the way business was done earlier and the way the business is done now, right? So this is all about digital transformation. So you are fundamentally changing the way you do the business. Now, you would often hear terms like, I am going digital. uh, I want to have a digital transformation. Now, are these terms same? Is digital transformation same as going digital? Now, when someone says going digital, right, they mean a lot of different things. So you say, I'm going digital. One person may understand that, okay, you might be going paperless, right? So currently you have a set of process and you are doing a lot of paperwork. But if you go digital, you are getting rid of all the paper processes, right? So that's one way of understanding that you are going digital. Another person might think that, okay, you are going digital. It might mean that you are using some technologies to analyze your data. You are using artificial intelligence technologies, to improve something in your business, in your process, right? Other may think that, okay, going digital is something related to, the way your offices are set up, right? So you may have an open plan. You manage all your plans to some tools, which are digital. So when you say going digital, it may mean different things to different people. Now, is that same as digital transformation? Not really. Okay, so here is a brief difference between what is a digital business and doing digital. So when we say digital transformation, I'm really talking about a digital business, right? So okay, so let's see the examples that we have seen earlier. Now, Ola and Uber, right? These are the companies that provides cab services. Do they own any cabs? No, they do not own any cabs, right? They are just providing a platform for the taxi drivers and the cab drivers, where they are connected to the consumers. Similarly, Airbnb, do they own any restaurants? Do they own any resorts? Do they own any places where people can stay? They do not. They just provide a platform, where people connect to the owners, and they basically then get the services from the owners, right? So these are digital businesses, right? They do not own any physical things, right? So this is called a digital business, right? So it may not be entirely true for all the businesses, but it's mostly true for most of the business. So if my business is digital, what it means is I am working in a more digital way. I do not own, or I own less of physical things, right? So that's what it means by digital transformation. So you are transforming your business to be more digital, right? So you are transforming the way you fundamentally uh, execute your business, right? So that's the difference. So when you say my business is digital, there is a change in your business culture and practice, right? But if you are saying that I'm going digital, it's basically merging of technology and marketing. Okay, so there is a difference between these two things. So by culture and practice, I mean that the way I want to do the business, I want to do it in a fully digital way, right? But in doing digital, what I want to do is whatever manual process I have, whatever uh, process bottlenecks that I want to solve it using digital technologies, right? It doesn't mean that your business is digital. Okay. Then in digital business, it's not only you who is creating value for your customers. Your customers, your vendors, your partners, they can also invent new stuff, and they can provide services to your customers, right? That's not the thing in doing digital. In digital, if your business is going digital, you are still customer focused, but your business is done by you and it's done for your customers. But in digital business, there is an ecosystem. So apart from you, your partners, your vendors, they also create new stuff for your customers and their customers, right? So that's the way your culture is changing. That's the way your practices are changing, right? Uh, then a very important thing is market disruption, right? This is a term that you would hear a lot of times. What it mean by disrupting a market. Okay, so we will see a few very good examples of market disruption. But the digital business, it aims at creating a market disruption, right? Whereas in doing digital, you basically respond to change when it is required, right? A very good example is our income tax system, right? So when government made the income tax mandatory to be filed online, then people and brokers, they started doing it, right? But there are companies like ClearTax, which are like example of digital business. They provide a different way of filing your income tax returns, right? So the traditional way of filing income tax has fundamentally changed. In one way, when government enforces that all your income tax should be filed online, some brokers are doing that now. But companies like ClearTax and others, they have a different approach for filing your income tax, right? So that's what it mean by creating a market disruption. And one very important thing in digital transformation is if you're running a business, it may be stalled, it may be saturated, right? There may be challenges that you are not able to solve. And with digital transformation, what you try to do is do the business in a different way, so that it improves your revenues. Your growth challenges, they are met, right? And you are able to grow your business, tenfold and hundredfold, right? But in doing digital, it's more about likes, right? If I'm doing business with you, if you provide some improvement, I may like it, right? But the way I'm doing business with you is still the same. So that's the fundamental difference. So in digital business, you are basically focused more on solving the growth challenges, right? But in doing digital, you are striving for providing some minor improvements to your existing process. Okay. So always keep in mind when you say digital business, digital transformation versus going digital. Now, this is a very important study that was done by John Chambers. He is the chairman of Cisco System. So he said 40% of all businesses will die in the next 10 years if they don't figure out how to change their entire company to accommodate new technologies, right? So what this essentially means that because the way businesses are changing, the way customer have interacted with the new business, if the older companies do not transform their existing business in the new ways, they are going to die, right? They cannot sustain this new mode or a new way of doing business, right? And he says that there are like 40% of business which are doing things in a traditional way. and they have to change. If they don't change, they will be out of business. So why digital transformation? It's a survival issue for many. If you do not transform your business, if you do not change the way you work, you may not survive. So it's a survival issue for many companies. And there are many companies which couldn't survive because they do not adopt the new way of doing business. Now, so this is Kodak company, right? And uh, in the earlier days, Kodak was like the god in the film market. You know, uh, they manufactured the photographic films. They also invented the first digital camera, right? And that's the irony. So because they invented the digital camera, they did not bank on it, but they still focused on the photographic film market because they never thought that digital camera would actually kill their business. So they thought that the photographic films they will continue to work as it is, over many years, right? And they didn't really want to bring digital camera into the market because they feared that it would affect their film market. So if they launch digital camera, people will stop buying the photographic films. They will stop buying the appliances, the photographic film cameras, and that would affect their business. And that's the reasons they did not launch the digital camera. But now you see that Kodak is nowhere, right? The other companies that have adopted, uh, you know, the digital way of doing things, like Sony and Ericsson uh, and GoPro, right? All these companies, they have thrived on this concept of digital camera, and Kodak is out of business. Another good example is Nokia, right? So Nokia is the first company to create a cellular network in the world, but they keep on focusing on the hardware. They actually didn't spend any money, any research and development in the way user works with the mobile phones, right? If you remember, Nokia phones, they are like feature phones. It's a button phone, and it's only good for making and receiving calls and SMS and a little bit functionality here and there, but they never focused on the user experience. And when Apple came, they introduced the touch phone, right? And that basically was a fundamental difference between how a user works with mobile, right? And when the smartphones or the touch phones were in market, a lot of things actually got killed, right? So cameras, the music players, right? The gaming devices, all those things were eventually moved into the smartphones, and that actually killed the business that was uh, around creating game stations and creating Walkmans and all. So this is a very good example as how a digital transformation really helped Apple, in capturing the mobile market. Another interesting story is Blockbuster. So Blockbuster Movies was a big chain in US, and they used to provide VHS, which are like cassettes, video cassettes, and then they shifted to CDs and DVDs, right? But they always focused on physical stores, right? So their main focus was on physical stores. So they kept on adding more and more stores across US, and they felt that this is the way business has to be done. And Blockbuster was a very big company in US. Netflix was a small company, and Netflix wasn't. The concept of Netflix didn't catch up initially, and uh, they were actually in need of money. So they approached Blockbuster and said that why don't you take over us, right? But Blockbuster refused. They thought that the way Netflix was providing content to their users, that's not going to work. Okay, so right now what you see is Netflix is basically providing the streaming contents over your mobile phones and TVs and other devices, right? But when Netflix was started, they used to be in the movie business, right? And they used to courier the CDs to their customers, right? So in Blockbusters, customers would go and rent DVDs and CDs. But Netflix, it used to courier CDs to their customers and then get it back from their customers. So their model was a bit different, right? And they approached Blockbuster and they said, why don't you buy us out? And Blockbuster refused that. And now you see that Blockbuster stores are closing down in US. Netflix is a big company, and there are millions and millions of users of Netflix across the world. So they have fundamentally changed how you would watch movies, how would you watch the web series and TV shows. So another good example of, if you do not adopt changes, you do not survive. Again, Yahoo, I think, again, very good use case. Before Google came, Yahoo was in online advertising. Yahoo had a search engine, and the Yahoo revenues were, too good, right? They used to earn a lot of money through advertising and through search engine and all. And then Google came, and Google started with the search engine, and Yahoo thought that Google uh, is a company who is doing stuff like what they are doing right now, and they wanted to buy Google. So they offered something to Google, and Google said, okay, this is less than what we expect. Why don't you increase that? But Yahoo refused. And then now, what you see is Yahoo has practically very less presence in the search market. They have very less presence in the online advertising market. But on the other hand, look at the revenues of Google. It has skyrocketed, right? So they are earning millions and billions of dollars through online advertising through all their platforms, right? So again, this is a very good example of how companies did not adopt the new things that were coming through. And then basically it became a question of their survival. Some companies survived, some companies did not. And that's how, it has come to this point. All right, so a few benefits of digital transformation is, there is of course a cost reduction. You provide a improved customer experience, right? It's a new experience for customers. Then you would segment your market, right? So for customers in India, you would do things differently. For customers in US, you would do things differently. For customers in Europe, you would do things differently, right? So you basically segment the market and provide different experience to customers. You basically build new products, new services, that will give you a different experience to your end users, right? You use a lot of analytics because you want to understand if your users are liking the new product, if your users are liking the new service, right? So analytics is a very important part of digital transformation. And finally, you consolidate your operations. So, you may have different departments, different business units who are, doing operations, right? But in a digital business, you consolidate all of them, right? And they work together, they work collaboratively and give more value to your customers, right? So any company that wants to do digital transformation, they have all these drivers in front of them, and that's how they will start their digital transformation journey. Now we would ask, how much is the market? So in 2018, the digital transformation market was like $290 billion. But in 2023, it's expected that it will be around $665 billion, right? So more and more companies, they are understanding that digital transformation is absolutely necessary to improve their business, to grow their business. to grow their revenues, right? And if they do not transform their business, then they will not survive. So companies are investing more and money in transforming their business. Now again, this is um, some analytics data that says, so this is a very interesting chart, right? So what this says is there are like 32 plus 10, 42% of companies that are investing between 10 million to 20 million or more than $20 million in digital transformation. But in next 12 months, look at this percentage. This is 34 plus 20, 54%, right? So there is a 12% jump in the amount of money that will be spent on digital transformation, right? So this is the trend, right? More and more companies are accepting the fact that they have to spend more money. They have to invest in digital transformation, which essentially means that there will be more jobs for digital transformation requirements. There will be more experts, more SMEs needed who can understand the business, who can transform the business. And because this is a very niche area, right? You are fundamentally changing the way business is done. Someone who has experience of digital transformation, someone who is expert, they have a high demand. They will always be in high demand, right? So this is a very niche job, right? And uh, if someone gets into the digital transformation field, they will always be in demand. That's what this really says. Okay, so another interesting thought from CEO of Box. So Box again is a company that provides the file uh, sharing services on the cloud. Okay, so what he says is last 10 years of IT, it's been about changing the way people work. But the next 10 years, it will be about transforming your business. So this has a very deep meaning. Now, in last 10 years, people are more computer savvy. They are using, more and more computer systems to automate their stuff. uh, you know but in next 10 years, that's not going to be sufficient. Next 10 years is all about transforming your business to work in a different way. Okay, so now we talked a lot about digital transformation. What is a digital transformation? What are the benefits of it? If you don't do a digital transformation, what are the challenges? What are the issues? It's a question of survival. Now, if I want to go into a field of digital transformation, what do I need to know? How do I get started with becoming an expert in digital transformation? How do I get started in understanding what I need to do, what I need to learn, to to digitally transform a business? So there are 5 key driving factors that are essential for digital transformation. First, of course, is Internet of Things, right? Many of you know that Internet of Things is actually happening. So currently there are around uh, you know uh, around 10 to 15 billion devices that are connected to internet. But the estimation is that by 2030, around 100 trillion sensors would be connected to the internet, right? And that's a huge number. And again, if you look at the current sensors, they are much better than the sensors you had before 5 years or 10 years, right? So they are lighter, they are cheaper, and they are faster, right? So if you are in a business, you would definitely look at the Internet of Things as how you would leverage Internet of Things to improve your business, to change the way you do your stuff, right? So one very important or very interesting um thing that we have done is around the factory automation, right? So consider a large factory which has automation line, right? An assembly line. And there are various machines which manufactures different parts, and then they get assembled, in another assembly line. Now, because it's a machine, there is a wear and tear, and you have to do a maintenance of your machines. You have to replace the faulty parts. You have to spend uh, uh, efforts and money on keeping your assembly lines always up and running, right? Now, the way the factories are changing is they are integrating Internet of Things into their overall manufacturing process. So they attach sensors, right, to their machines, which gives them real-time data as how the machines are performing. And this data also tells them that if there is a fault, where the fault is exactly, right? What they need to do to resolve that fault, right? And this eventually makes the entire maintenance of the assembly lines very accurate and very fast. Okay. They also integrate the machine learning technologies with the data that they obtain from the sensors, and using that combination, they can actually predict when a machine is going to fail, right? They can actually predict when a part needs a replacement, right? So uh, a, instead of a maintenance which is done after something broke down, it's like a preventive maintenance, right? So before something breaks down, you are actually fixing it, which helps you to keep your assembly lines and factories running 24/7, right? So that's the power of Internet of Things. So it's just one of the key driving factors in transforming business, making them more of digital business. So you leverage the Internet of Things, you leverage, the sensors and the data, and you transform, the way your business is run. Then second is, of course, mobile computing. So earlier, people used to have desktops and laptops, and they would go to sites and look for the information, work with computers. That has changed, right? So people are using mobiles and tablets more than the laptops and the desktops, right? So look at this chart. What this says is that the number of mobile users, it has surpassed the number of desktop or computer users. You know which means that more and more users are mobile centric. They use mobile to perform the task, right? So you want to transform your business. Uh, One set of your customers are the mobile users. So you have to build something for your mobile users that will give them opportunity, you know, to get the services from your business, right? So again, this is a very important driving factor for digital transformation. So if I want to transform my business, I always have to think about users who are on mobile, and they use mobile as a primary device for interacting with my business, right? So, uh, so understanding of the mobile computing platform, understanding how to build mobile applications, understanding how to provide a very good user experience through mobile applications. That's a very important thing for you, right? So some of you may be interested in mobile computing. You want to build mobile apps, right? And mobile apps again is a key driver for digital transformation. So if you have mobile app development skills, if you understand how to build applications, how to give a very good experience to end users, you are of course in a right path, for helping business doing a digital transformation, right? So continue doing that. Third thing is social networking, right? Social networking is now very important. People, when they want to buy something, let's say on Amazon or Flipkart, they look at the reviews and ratings, and then they make their decision, right? Now, this data actually comes from the other users who have used that product, and now they provide the reviews as that product was really helpful or not, right? So this is all social networking, right? Now, if you want to reach to more and more customers, you have to take advantage of social networking. You know, you have to be present on social networking sites. You know, you have to excite people about your products and services so that they write about you. You know, they give good rating about your services. And when you have a good rating, of course, your products will sell more, and you know your revenues will increase. Okay, so social networking is another important thing for digital transformation. Now, as an engineer, as a developer, what does it mean by a social networking, right? So, as an engineer, what you should be aware of are the social networking platforms and how you can actually leverage these platforms to provide value to your customers. Okay, let's say I am a manufacturer of washing machine, right? And I am running a Twitter handle, and I launch a new model of my washing machine, right? And I ask customers to give them feedback through the Twitter handle. Okay, so basically, what people will do is they will do a tweet and they will hashtag my company or the washing machine model, right? So as an engineer, as a social networking engineer, what my job is to analyze the tweets that are coming from users and identify what is the sentiment of users. Is it a positive sentiment? Is it a negative sentiment? Is it a neutral, right? That will give me some idea as if this model is doing good, this model is not doing good, and then I can make necessary changes in my model, right? So this is the power of social networking. Okay. So as a company, you should always be present on social. You should always respect the feedback that you get on the social networking sites and use that feedback to improve your products. Okay. So one component for digital transformation is integrating the social networking into your overall process, into your overall infrastructure, into your overall ecosystem. Big data and analytics, again, very interesting thing. So when you go to Amazon, right? If you are looking for a particular product, what Amazon does is they give you a few more recommendations. You know, you could also look at this, or if you buy this, then also buy this, because generally people buy this in combination, right? If I am planning to go to some location for vacation, right? Uh, you know, the moment I search in Google, and then if I go to Amazon or Flipkart or any other site, I start noticing the advertisements about the place that I have just searched for, right? This is nothing but the big data and analytics, right? So what's important here is doing a real-time analysis and doing a real-time advertisement, you know, doing real-time notifications to the users, you know, so that they buy your services. Now imagine that there are millions and billions of users who are, you know, using your services, and it's, you know, gigabytes of data per second that's coming into your data center. Now you want to analyze this huge amount of data in real time, get meaningful insights out of this data, and then recommend something to the user, right? It's a big job. It's a very challenging job. But that's where the big data and analytics, you know, comes into picture. And these are the drivers using which you would, as part of your digital business, give more and more personalized experience to your end users, right? So again, as an engineer, what's in it for me, right? So look at any business, you know, data is the like new oil. Data is like the new electricity. Okay, data is the new IP, right? So if you have data, you can always get good insights from the data. You can always analyze the data, you know, understand the patterns, and then take a decision, right? So as an engineer, what are your options? You can look at the big data tools. You can look at the big data analytic tools. You can look at the real-time analysis, real-time data processing, because these things are really required when your business is digital, right? When you want to do all the things digitally, right? So big data analytics is very important thing. And some of you, if you are excited about big data analytics, do spend time, uh, looking at the big data tools and how it helps improve your business. And finally, cloud computing. So many people, many companies, they want to adopt cloud because it saves money. It makes your infrastructure more agile, and it improves your timelines, right? So before cloud, companies has to create a purchase request to buy hardware and then wait for the hardware and then set it up and then start using it. It used to take months and months. But with cloud, you just go to cloud and buy what you need, and you are live, right? So this basically has cut down the time required to procure hardware from months to minutes, right? And this is a very big advantage for customers and the enterprises, right? Secondly, companies which buy hardware, if that hardware is not fully utilized, it's just lying there, right? So it's a cost. You still have to run that hardware, you have to maintain it, you have to have a set of administrators who would manage that. It's basically a cost. But if you go to cloud, you don't really are purchasing any hardware, right? You are just using what you need, and when you are done, you just give it back. So you are just paying for what you use. You are not paying for what you will use in future. That's definitely a lot of saving for the companies. And third important thing is, right now you have 1,000 customers. Tomorrow you will have 10,000. Next month you will have 100,000, and then millions, right? So as your customers increase, you have to always update your infrastructure. It has to scale. Now, if you cannot scale your infrastructure, your users will not be happy because your application will not be fast, it will not be responsive, and people will not use your services, right? So you have to expand, you have to scale your infrastructure based on the demand, and that's what cloud gives you. So this is the final factor for digital transformation, that use cloud, right? Whether it's a public cloud, whether it's a private cloud, go for cloud, because that gives you a lot of good things to operate your business in a more efficient way, right? Now, as an engineer, uh, how should I go about it, right? So there are public clouds like AWS and Azure and IBM Cloud, Google Cloud. There are private clouds like Red Hat Cloud and Pivotal Cloud, Oracle Cloud, right? So as an engineer, you have to be aware of cloud. You have to understand how to use cloud, how to use services from cloud, how to use cloud to efficiently run applications and meet all the scalability and performance requirements, right? That eventually gives you a very good edge over the others, because you are proficient with the cloud, right? So we have looked at Internet of Things, mobile computing, social networking, big data analytics, and cloud computing. Cloud computing, these are the factors that are essential for digital transformation. And as an engineer, you are open to adopt one or more of these technologies, so that you will be ready to work on digital transformation. So it's a combination of all of these things which will be required for a digital transformation. And when you are expert in one or more of these, of course, you will always be in demand. Okay, so again, this is very interesting thing. So previously, the big were beating the small, right? If you are a big company, you will always buy a smaller company, or you will always beat a smaller company because they don't have enough resources or enough money to compete with you. But now the things are changing, right? Is the fast that is beating the slow. So if you are a very big company but slow, and there could be a small company which is very fast, that will eventually beat you, right? So Google was a very small company, Yahoo was a very big company, but Google was fast, Yahoo was slow, and Google eventually beat Yahoo. So now is the question of who is fast and who is slow, right? And what does it mean by you are fast, right? It means that you are actually leveraging all these technologies that we have seen on previous slides to make your business more efficient. So if you are expert in using cloud, if you are expert in using big data and doing analytics, you are fast, right? Because you are doing things more efficiently, and that's the way you will beat the other companies. So keep in mind, be fast, uh, you know, learn these technologies, be an expert in one or more, and that's how you will help businesses to transform and prosper. Okay, so I think let's look at the reference architecture. Now we have seen all theory. Now let's look at some practical. So what should I do if I want to transform a business, right? So take any company. So that company has a set of softwares they use. It's called commercial off the shelf COTS, right? So these are the softwares or tools that they buy from different vendors or ISVs. They would have some web services, they would have some cloud services, they would have a set of databases, right? So this is all present in any company or any organization. Now, these tools or these services, they use internally to do their business, right? But now they want to transform their business. They want to do things differently. Okay, so what are their goals? Now they should integrate the system with each other, right? If one system is very good at doing one things, another system is very good at doing another thing. Let them do the things they do best, and then integrate them together to get more value out of it. Okay, so the first goal for your digital transformation is integrating systems with each other. You do not really want systems to work isolated, independent of each other, because that doesn't give you any value. You would want to integrate the systems together. Okay, and second thing is, as we have seen in digital transformation, it's not only you who is creating value for your customer, but it's your partners, your vendors. They will also help you in creating value for your customers, right? So you have to expose your services to different stakeholders like customers or other branches or vendors or partners, right? And we will look at this shortly. This is a very fundamental thing, for doing the things differently. And when you expose services to different stakeholders, you want to monitor how these services are being used, and you have to provide improvements. Okay. Again, we will look at this very shortly. This is very important, and unless you have this sort of monitoring in place, you won't be able to, do a good transformation of your business processes. And finally, whatever information you expose, you have to secure it so that only trusted partners or trusted stakeholders, they will be able to use it, and not everyone. Okay, so let's look at the smart elevator. So we did a um, we did participate in a hackathon that was organized by Kone. Kone is an elevators company, and elevator is a thing um, which is completely uh, managed by the company, right? So they do the installations, they do the maintenance, right? And they want to keep on improving the elevators. Now, you would ask what is there for me, you know, uh, to work with the elevator company, right? So the interesting thing here is the Kone Elevators company, they created APIs for their elevators, right? And then they exposed the APIs to the end users. And they asked users or developers, to build interesting concepts or interesting applications using those APIs, right? So now you see what they are doing is they are transforming the way they are building the elevators. So they are not the only one who will build applications for the elevators, but they want others to build applications for elevators, and create interesting things. So one of the interesting thing was that, let's say you have an elevator in a hotel, right? And in a hotel, you always have your smart card to for your room, right? And one interesting thing that was presented by someone is, your smart cards, they would integrate with your elevator. So as soon as you step into the elevator, the smart card would interact with the elevator, and the elevator would know that you have a room on fifth floor. So you don't need to press the five button, right? The elevator can simply take you to the floor where your room is, right? Isn't that an interesting concept, right? The way user works with the elevator, that is changing. So you don't have to worry about pressing buttons. As soon as you enter the elevator knows, where to take you. So that's one of the power of, exposing the APIs and let people work the APIs and come up with interesting solutions. That's how you transform your business. Another interesting thing that we did is, because the elevators have APIs, we use those APIs to understand the health of the elevator, right? And by health of the elevator, I would mean that when does it need some maintenance? If it is broken down, if there is going to be a breakdown of the elevator, I can monitor the elevators in my city across different hotels and apartments, and I can dispatch the staff to take care of those elevators. So I don't really want customers to keep on calling me that my elevator has broken down. Instead, it's me who knows that this elevator has broken down, and I just fix it in time before customer complain, right? So that's a different experience for customers. They don't have to follow up with my company to fix the elevators, right? But I am very proactive in telling customers that, okay, you have a problem, I am fixing it for you, right? So that's a customer delight. So again, that's the power of digital transformation. So you are basically transforming the way you work with elevators and the way you provide service to the customers, right? So now, having looked at this is the reference architecture. And as a engineer, as a developer, I think this is what you would look for. How should I go about digital transformation, right? So the fundamental thing over here is your API management. So what I want to do is I want to expose the APIs of my business, right, to the other people so that they can use those and build more and more integrations and more services that adds value to my business. Okay. So you would generally have a API management layer. An API management layer is nothing but, you know, what it does, it's a central, or it's an entry point for your users to use your APIs. So you may have 10 systems. Each system has its own APIs. Now all those APIs will be consolidated at the API management layer, and your users, they would have a single entry point to use any APIs that they would like to, right? So if you look at AWS cloud, there is AWS API management service that's available. In IBM cloud, there is IBM's API management layer. If you are running your own private data center, then there are, of course, open source tools like WSO2 uh, and Nginx, which can act as API management layer. Okay. And then this is the DMZ, which means that this is demilitarized zone. Okay, so this is exposed to the public internet. But anything below that, this is your private network. This is your LAN. Okay, so the only way your users can access your APIs is through the DMZ, and they do not get access to any of your um, applications and services which are running in your network. Okay, then you have the commercial softwares that you're using. You may be using some of the cloud services like Salesforce and Office 365. You have some microservices. You have some data stores, databases, messaging systems. So all these systems are integrated over here, right? And when they are integrated, you have sort of uniform APIs, then which are then exposed to the API management layer. Okay, so the north side of this diagram is about APIs that your users will use. Okay, and the south side of this architecture is about all the services and applications that you want to integrate and give it to the users. Okay. Um, then you have the analytics. So you always want to know how your APIs are being used by users. Are they happy with it? What sort of value add they can get from those APIs? And that's where the analytics comes in. So you would monitor how different users, how different developers, partners are using your APIs, how much, how much is the usage, what data they are using. And that gives you more insights, and you can do more improvements on your APIs, right? And, once you improve, you will start noticing that your business is improved, right? You have more customers, the customer experience has improved, which essentially means that, you are in your growth path, your revenues are increasing, right? And then finally, you have identity and access management, which basically ensures that only authorized users can access your services. So you have authorized partners, you have authorized vendors, that are supposed to use the APIs to build new services, new products, and you enforce that using the identity and access management services. So again, as an engineer, as a developer, all these things are something which you should know. When you go to any cloud, the cloud provides identity and access management services, right? So you should be aware of that. It's a fundamental requirement from a security perspective. Analytics, we talked about big data and analytics. So if you are excited about analytics, this is where you start with. These are the systems that are built in-house for the customer. So there are databases that you work with. You build your microservices, you build your applications. So you got to have experience how to build applications, how to build microservices, and so on, right? So all these boxes in this diagram, each box means something to the developer, you know. So there are SMEs, subject matter experts, for each of these box. There are people who are very specialized to perform one part of this, right? And this is where the value lies. So in a digital transformation, you have to stitch in all these pieces together so that you have a transformed business. And to do that, you need people with different kinds of experience. You need different experts, to work this all together in a fashion that will transform your business. Okay, so keep in mind all these things that you see here. Someday you will be using these. Someday you will be working on this. So the earlier you know, you have some experience with that. That's definitely going to help you. Okay, so with that, I think what I want to do is I want to demo you a couple of case studies that we have built, and it's actually a video that explains how this was done.
parking lot is always a nightmare.
Okay, so this first case study is about the intelligent parking system. So in US or European countries, the airport parking lots, they are huge. I mean, literally they are huge. So it can accommodate like thousands of cars. And if I want to, park my vehicle, I have to find a parking spot and then I have to remember it. And it's, the parking area is so huge that managing the parking is a nightmare for the operator. So this case study is about how to improve the parking system. Okay, so the fundamental thing here is basically using a drone to monitor the parking lot, and then drone can identify which are the vacant parking lots. And when you enter the parking lot, the drone will tell you that okay, you can park here. The drone can also guide you to a parking spot, so that you don't have to waste your time searching for a parking lot and then park it. Similarly, when you want to retrieve your parked vehicle, you can just ask the drone, where is my vehicle, and the drone will guide you, right? So this is the parking system that was developed.
When he visits the Adventura theme park.
Adventura welcomes you, Mr. Smith. Please find parking at J4.
Smart companies are always looking for ways to delight their customers, and owners of parking lots have a customer satisfaction problem at hand. Finding parking, especially at airports, downtown parking lots, malls, or amusement parks, can be a puzzling and frustrating experience. Let us introduce you to smart parking with quadcopters, an intelligent, low-maintenance, inexpensive, flexible, and unique parking enablement technology. It not only identifies open spaces, but also assists drivers in driving their vehicles to the empty spaces, thus saving time, ensuring full utilization of parking spaces, and most importantly, reducing frustration for the drivers. This parking solution works with a collection of quadcopters connected to the Watson IoT platform in concert with software that's used to manage the parking facility and can integrate with any payment gateway. Quadcopters assist the parking lot business by not only locating available parking slots, but also by identifying irregular parking time limit violations, any unusual activity around the vehicles, attempts at vehicle theft, as well as any obstacles in the parking lot. Integration with reservation systems, notification, and alert services can make this service even more customer-friendly. The Internet of Things, IoT, is revolutionizing customer service, and our smart parking with quadcopters is yet another demonstration of how Persistent is bringing such solutions to its customers. But why Persistent? As a key partner of IBM with over 25 years of software development experience, this
Okay, so that was a interesting demo of the intelligent parking system using a drone. I think we are quite over time, but let me stop here. I actually have another interesting video to share, but I can share the link and you can all take a look at it. But I think at this point I can stop, and if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Jadip sir,
Yeah.
I just want to ask you that you please guide the student that on what areas they have to focus. What are the specific skills they should acquire so that to enter into this field?
Yeah, sure.
Mm.
Sure.
Uh,
So we have looked at 5 pillars of digital transformation, right? One is Internet of Things. Second is cloud computing. Third is data and analytics. Fourth is social networking. And fifth is the mobile computing, right? So these are like essential pillars. for a digital transformation. So if you look at any project, any product, it will have a part of each of this, right? You cannot have just one thing as part of your business. Okay, so look at, like, let's say Uber, right? Uber, what you have is mobile computing, because the Uber app is mobile based. Then the Uber backend servers, they are hosted in cloud, right? Then Uber uses a lot of analytics and data to give you information about your past rides. It has the map integration in place, which tells you who is the nearest cab that is approaching you, right? Similarly, it uses the social networking, where you give feedback about drivers, right? And that feedback is used by Uber uh, to make more and more decisions, right? So in short, what I'm trying to say is, you take any company, any business, these 5 pillars will be implicit part of your business. Okay. So for you, you can pick up one or more of these pillars, and acquire skills in that. When you talk about cloud, you learn about AWS cloud, you learn about Azure cloud, you do some certifications. If you're interested in mobility, you understand how to build applications for Android, you learn how to build applications for Apple, iOS, and that's how you start. So if you want to get into digital transformation, first of all, you have to understand these all things, right? You may not be expert in all of these, but you have to understand the Internet of Things concept. You have to understand the mobile computing, right? Because these are essential for digital transformation. So initially, you can start with as a developer, but eventually you may grow into a subject matter expert, or you are domain expert in one of these things, and then you have an overall understanding and visibility of how you would use all these things together to transform the business, from the current mode into a new and improved mode. Right. So if you're already doing any work on data and analytics, try to learn more and more tools, try to get hang of the tools that are offered by public clouds, because those are really very easy to set up and use. And that's how you will improve your skills in data and analytics. Okay, so same thing applies for Internet of Things and mobile and so on.
Anyone who would like to ask questions? There, feel free. Don't shy. Ask your questions. Harshal? Avatar? Yes, don't hesitate. You feel free to ask any question. Hello. So, Abhishek sir.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir.
Yes, Tosh.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Sir, you told us about how some sectors are not willing to cooperate in the online market and their business will collide sometime, matlab, after some time. So, how much of it is true? Means many sectors don't know about the, means many of us are using 4G phones, but there are 3 million users predicted by Reliance Corporation that says they are not using 4G phones and are not aware of the internet and IoT things. So, sir, how can we pursue them to purchase our if they are not aware of any online marketing schemes?
Okay, good question. So I think that's a problem in India, in some parts of India, but globally, that may not be a problem. But the things are changing, right? This is the advancement in the technology, right? So in India, more and more service providers, they are setting up their network to provide 4G services to the consumers, right? In some parts of India, people are still using 3G or 2G because they do not have enough infrastructure. But things are changing. So I think that's the first part. Second part is, when people see that there is a value in using the services provided by the service providers in a particular way, they will quickly start adopting it. So even within cities, you can see that when, let's say Swiggy and Zomato, they came, initially there was not much of adoption. But when the mobile usage increased, when people got a faster connectivity and people found out that this is a better way of ordering food, people started adopting it. The same thing is going to happen to tier 3 cities and tier 4 cities and so on, right? So I think it's a question of time, and it's a question of how fast the infrastructure will be set up across uh, across the paths across India where currently the infrastructure is lacking, right? So it's a question of time. Another example I can give is the banking. So most of the banks are now digital banks, right? Uh, they want people to use ATMs to withdraw money and not go to the bank to withdraw money. They want people to use mobile apps to do transactions and not really come to the branch, right? So in cities, you can see that behaviors are changing. If you go to villages where there are banks, people have adopted to some extent how they do banking, right? Now people, even if they have feature phones, not smartphones, still they get the SMS and they understand that their account has been credited and account has been debited, right? So things will change. It will take some time, but as the infrastructure improves, as the adoption improves, things will change.
Sure. And the second question was that if everything will shift online, so the job vacancy which used to be offline, would it affect the, what can we say, the employment of India or any country if the jobs are shifted online? Means many work will be, most of the work will be done by processors and online computing. So
Yeah, you are right. I think some jobs will no longer be there, but there will be new jobs. Okay, so it's not that the jobs will decrease. Based on my reading, the jobs will increase, but then jobs will require a different skill set. Okay, now let's think about machine learning, right? So in machine learning, the machine learns some of the things about the user behaviors or the patterns, and it provides a solution, right? So this used to be done by programmers earlier, right? They used to write programs to analyze the data and provide an output. And now these developers are not required because machine is doing that. So these kind of jobs where people used to write programs, they are no longer there or they are reducing. But on the other hand, there are new jobs which are about writing machine learning algorithms. There are new jobs about applying machine learning to different areas of a business, to different projects to make it more efficient, right? So there are new jobs created around machine learning and artificial intelligence, and that's going to happen. So as we progress, a set of jobs will no longer be there, but at the same time, a set of new jobs will be created, right? So for you as an engineer, as a developer, what is really important is you understand the technology spectrum, right? You understand what new things are coming. You always have to keep on learning new and new things so that you are always updated, and then you will never be obsolete. You will be never working on stuff that is legacy and that is obsolete, but you will always be ready to take on new work, always be ready to work on something new, you know, which is part of the technological advancements. So my advice to you and everyone is that, um, keep on always learning, and be aware of what new things are coming. So there are very good, daily newsletters that you can subscribe to. You can go to medium.com. Medium.com is a great source of information for the new cutting edge technologies and new things that are coming into market. You can subscribe to daily newsletter and get a hang of what new things are coming, and eventually that will help you to decide what to learn and what not.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Pradeep sir, my question to you is that okay, see everything is going is getting online. Your online purchasing, online banking, every business you are going for online. So what about the security issues? Because everything is online, so everybody's data is exposed to the digital platform, digital media. So there are so many hackers are there. So what about the security issues? How that can be handled?
Yeah, I think very good question. So security will be an implicit part of any pillar, right? So we have looked at 5 pillars, and security is an implicit part of each and every of those. When you talk about Internet of Things, you basically have sensors, right, attached to your, let's say, factories or machines, right? So if those sensors are not secured, it's quite easy for someone to hack them and uh, you know hack the data, right? Or inject some data which is harmful to your systems, right? So you would need security to make sure that your sensors cannot be hacked, and the data that your sensors are sending to your servers, that is also sent over a secure channel, right? Similarly, when you talk about cloud computing, you have to make sure that whatever resources you are creating in the cloud, those are secure and those cannot be accessed by anyone. So I would consider security as a horizontal across all of these. And again, any part of project that we do, security as an implicit part. So there are people who are expert on security for Internet of Things. There are people who are experts on security for web applications. They will try to find the flaws in your web applications. They will try to break it. And it's called ethical hacking, right? And then they will tell you that, okay, your system has these security issues and you have to fix them. Okay, so consider security as a horizontal which spawns across all these pillars. If you are interested on the security part, I think this is where you can look at, or you can start at, security for Internet of Things and security for cloud, security for data and analytics, and this is how you can get started about that. So Kulkarni sir, I hope I answered your question.
So, sir, I think the security or cryptography is also one of the area where the students can focus on, isn't it?
Yeah, cryptography. Yeah,
Cryptography.
cryptography. Right. So cryptography is actually implicit for any security. So you always work with certificates. You always work with encrypted channels for sending and receiving data. Uh, you know, when you talk about data security, you may want to encrypt the data, right? And that's where the cryptographic comes into picture. Now there are lots of providers who have already built very sophisticated solutions for cryptographic use. So if you really want to get into R&D around cryptography, yes, that's an option. But in most general purpose, people tend to use the cryptography that's been developed by different vendors and ISVs.
Okay. So anyone is having any questions? Please ask.
Sir, I have a question.
Huh.
Sir, what do you think about blockchain as a technology and its usage in security part of any project or implementation of any application? What do you think about it?
Okay, so blockchain is a new technology. It's not fully matured yet, but people are starting to seeing some benefits of using blockchain. And it tries to overcome some of the challenges in a multi-party system, right? When there are multiple parties that trying to work on the same data, right? There are of course challenges with respect to synchronization. There are challenges with respect to uh, you know uh, who modified what, which have a legal standing as well, right? And that's where people see some advantages of using blockchain. Now, I think blockchain can be more adopted by banking systems, where there are a very large legal standings. But again, it's not a fully mature technology. It's not fully productionalized. By production, I mean, when it's by production, I mean, when actually the people start using it, at large scale. So it's not entirely up to that point, but I do believe that there will be more and more advances on the blockchain side, and eventually, large organization and institutes, they will start adopting blockchain as a foundation layer, where multiple parties are involved. So it addresses some of the security concern, with respect to non-repudiation, uh, you know, and the shared data access by multiple parties. But again, blockchain, there are few providers who provide the blockchain format, and you have to build applications on top of the blockchain platform, right? And when you build applications, you always have to consider the security aspects for your application. So you would try to leverage the security supported by the blockchain platform, but at the same time, your applications will also have to consider the security aspects. Now, if you build an application on top of blockchain, you may provide a mobile app interface for your application, right? And then you have to think about security aspects in your mobile app. If your application is hosted on cloud, because the blockchain platform itself hosted on cloud, you have to deal with the security aspects for your cloud application. So again, so security will be horizontal across all these pillars, irrespective of whether you are using a blockchain platform to build your application or not.
Yes, sir. Got it.
Anyone? So I don't think anyone. So shall we stop now? Yes. So Abhishek sir. So I think he has left the meeting. There's some personal issues. Okay, sir. Then thank you very much, sir, Jaideep sir, for your informative and interesting session on this digital transformation. And I hope all of you have taken the good advantage of this. And so thank you, sir, for your precious time that you have given us for this session. So thank you very much, sir, Jaideep sir. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kulkarni sir, and thanks to all the students for attending this session. And I hope it was useful and give you some ideas, how to build your careers and what to look for.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Students, you need to fill the feedback form. Then only your attendance will be counted for this webinar. Okay. So please fill this feedback form. I will share the link in chat box. Once you fill this form, then you may leave.
सरांना लेटर द्यावं लागेल किंवा ते काम अजूनही झालेलं नाही. कारण आपला इश्यू काय आहे, समजा आपण मोडल आपण चालू करतो म्हणलं, आपलं ते सेपरेट लाईन लागेल. हो, तर ह्या दोन तर आहेत ऑलरेडी आपल्याकडे.
आपल्याकडे सध्या मला याच्याबद्दल काहीच माहित नाही. आपल्याकडे कोणत्या कोणत्या लाईन्स आहेत?
2 लाईन्स आहेत सर. फायब्रोच्या 2 लाईन आहेत.
फायब्रोच्या.
Amit sir, you can stop recording.
Yes, sir.
Amit sir or Abhishek sir.
Yes, sir. I'll stop recording.
फायब्रोच्या मतलब BSNLच्या
BSNLचेच आहे दोन्ही.
2 लाईन.
त्या एक्झिस्टिंग आहे.